And this week on The Quad, I'm back. And unfortunately, a chilling new hostage video shows the brutal contrast between Hamas terrorists and the starved Israeli captives, sparking outrage and urgent questions. With hostage talks frozen and growing proof Hamas is stealing aid, what options does Israel have left? We'll be speaking to Emily Schrader on the Gaza border and unpack the latest moves by the UK, France and Canada to recognize a Palestinian state. All this coming up on today's Quad. You don't want to miss this, only on JNS. And welcome back, everybody, to the Quad. And I have missed all of you, but you have been in the best hands possible of my wonderful co-host, Emily Schrader, who is a journalist and human rights activist, and Shoshana Keats-Jaskoll, the founder of Chochmat Nashim, fighting for Orthodox women's voices. And today we have a special return co-host, Jonathan Elkhoury, who is a columnist and a speaker. Welcome back, everyone. And honestly, every week, and I feel like we sound like a broken record, it seems like the blood libels couldn't get any worse. And this blood libel of starvation has been picking up steam until it reached a pinnacle last week. But really, if there are that many starving people in Gaza, why did Hamas feel that for their propaganda, they have to parade a sick child, and not just one, but many sick children, whilst their mothers are holding them, and they don't look like they've been starved, and neither do their siblings. And whilst, of course, there is suffering in the Gaza Strip, and whilst, of course, there is food insecurity in the middle of the war, the starvation is a blood libel. But who is really starving in the Gaza Strip? Our hostages, like poor Evyatar David, who we saw in the last few days, looking like a Holocaust survivor. You cannot make this up. The way that he's been treated, the way that they've paraded him. And in fact, and my dear panel, maybe we can discuss this, I actually feel that the Evyatar David video, which was put out in order to put pressure on Israel internally, has backfired maybe a little bit, because you have all these countries that were declaring that they believe in a Palestinian state and that they're going to actually declare a Palestinian state in September. And I think some of them are feeling pretty rotten that all it has done, which is what we warned them would happen, is embolden the terrorists, embolden Hamas not to come to the table and negotiate a ceasefire, because all they have to do is wait till September and the prize will just be given to them. Emily, you were actually in Gaza over the last week. You saw for yourself the tons of food sitting on the Gaza side of the border. We're not going to give it all away. We're going to see a little bit of Emily, and the rest of her reportage will come out on her wonderful new show. But Emily, what was the feeling when you were there?
I mean, I think it's incredibly frustrating, as I said in the video, to see that there's just pallets upon pallets of aid that nobody's moving. There's no question that I think there's responsibility on both sides. I really do. But you cannot say in good conscience that Israel has ever intentionally starved Gazans. And this blood libel, the way that they're perverting every single thing that happens and the way that they're obsessing over it is so disproportionate when you compare it to any other conflict ever in history, including present day. So it's just so intellectually dishonest. And it's the same theme that we've seen throughout this entire war when it comes to this conflict. But now it's actually coming to, life and death situation for many people. And not only that, it's life and death outside of Israel, with how the Jewish community is receiving attacks and criticism and violence, not just criticism in words, but violence against their communities as a result of this incitement. And it's so irresponsible.
It's irresponsible, but can you explain to us maybe, I mean, I've spoken to people from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and I understand that the UN is complicit because essentially the food sits there, but they don't want to distribute it because they can't guarantee that it won't fall into Hamas's hands, which is our condition for their distribution. But then the Gaza Health Foundation can't distribute this fast enough. The UN have the infrastructure, but they refuse to do it if Hamas is not involved. Is it like final that the UN is completely in bed with Hamas?
Yes, it is. That's why UNRWA hasn't been allowed to distribute any of the aid. And of course, they're using this as an excuse. Oh, because we can't distribute via UNRWA and that's what has all the infrastructure. That's what the problem is. No, it's not. They have tons of aid there. They have the World Food Program. They have other options for distributing aid. Israel offered security to accompany the convoys. GHF offered security to accompany the convoys. They rejected both of those. They don't show up until, 6, 7 p.m. in the evening in order to distribute the aid, even though Israel has now implemented a daytime humanitarian pause in fighting. They've also implemented just last week new humanitarian corridors. So they've come to some kind of compromise, I believe, with the UN. There are more trucks being distributed now after they got publicly called out. But it's still not enough. They're still not doing what they need to do. And there are still, as of right now, hundreds of trucks worth of goods, humanitarian aid, sitting there in the same place where I was in that video on the Gaza side of the border in the UN's facility that are not being moved. It's important to know also that the GHF facility is actually not there. It's in a different place and they are moving. They've distributed over 100 million meals at this point. So they are moving forward. It's just not enough for the entire population of Gaza and the situation that they're facing now. But, I'm hopeful that the more we talk about it and the more we call it out, that the UN will step up. I don't hold my breath for it, but I hope.
It's incredible that the UN basically have been complicit to this libel whilst being responsible for the non-distribution of goods.
Not only that, but at first they refused to distribute the aid because they insisted that the Hamas blue police accompany them. They wanted Hamas to accompany the aid that Hamas continues to loot.
The UN and Hamas are one and the same in the Gaza Strip. I mean, certainly UNRWA.
That's the problem.
Jonathan, you're out there fighting the good fight. You have a completely different perspective because, as many of you know, Jonathan's family were actually refugees from Lebanon when Hezbollah took over, and you've now been Israeli for, thank God, a long time with us.
25 years.
25 years. You fight the battle of the blood libels as a Christian Arab Lebanese in the media. How do you convince them that they're all blind and they're not really seeing what's actually going on?
Well, this is the $1 million question that I hope that I will receive one day if anyone like the anti-Israeli canonic. Exactly. At the end of the day, a lot of people are just refusing to see reality as it is. When I come to campuses and when I go and speak with people, also in the media, they refuse to understand that this reality of terror organization taking over civilians and using us as human shields when they attack Israel, that this is at the end of the day our reality. They refuse to realize that this is what happened in Lebanon during the 70s and during the 80s and when Hezbollah took over during the 2006 war. And now, after Hamas initiated October 7th in 2023, Hezbollah joined on October 8th, 2023 to start shooting at Israel in solidarity with Hamas and the Palestinian people, as they claimed. At the end of the day,
that worked out really well for them.
Oh yeah, I can see.
They must regret the day they ever send that first rocket.
I know they do, because this made a lot of people also in Lebanon to realize who has their best interests. And this is what I try to do, is to not just explain it as someone who experienced it, but also to show the reality now on the ground, how Hezbollah was using a lot of Lebanese villages when they were attacking Israel, how Hezbollah used mosques and churches also in Lebanon to attack Israel, how at the end of the day, when Israel attacked Hezbollah, they attacked only Hezbollah and prevented themselves from attacking civilian infrastructure or any Lebanese government infrastructure. And that helped a lot to understand the reality of who Israel is fighting at the ground. And Lebanon was the 100% case that actually showed that.
This is actually a really interesting point that I brought up a few times on TV that I think it's important to note. You've seen Israel conduct wars in Yemen, in Iran, in Syria, in Lebanon. And nowhere have you seen the scale of catastrophe and civilian casualties and the drama that you see and hear from Gaza. Now, I'm not saying it's not true when I say drama, but I am saying that it is unique to Gaza, which proves what we're saying.
Exactly.
That the situation is different because Hamas is using the civilian population. That is precisely the evidence that shows that it's not the same situation.
It's part of their strategy. They say it, just nobody will believe it. But let me ask you a question about Lebanon, Jonathan, because it seems like, and maybe I'm just a glass half full type of person, it seems like the tide is turning in Lebanon in favor of pushing out the Islamists from Hezbollah. Do you feel that? Do you feel like the government of Lebanon, whatever that is today, is kind of actually getting control of their own country back?
Well, I think this current government in Lebanon is the first government that we can say for sure that it's on the right path to make sure that Hezbollah stops using Lebanon as an entity to attack Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran's depth core inside of Lebanon will finally end. And that we saw that also during the war, because what happened is that Hezbollah and also Syria that was backing Hezbollah, the Assad regime was backing Hezbollah, and they were working together to attack Lebanese that will go against Hezbollah.
And Hezbollah was helping the Syria Assad.
They were butchering innocent civilians that refused to have the Islamic Republic of Iran control their territories for their own use. And we saw that after the Assad regime fell, suddenly Lebanese felt much more liberated to be able to speak out their mind more. And also the amount of attacks that Israel put on Hezbollah's heads, Hassan Nasrallah's elimination, other Hezbollah leaders that had to be eliminated in order to have the Lebanese people finally take over control of the wheels and make sure that now, for the final end, they will be able to push Hezbollah out. This could take time, but we can see that this is where the shifts are turning in Lebanon. And I really hope that we will see one day much more united front in Lebanon for Lebanon to join the Abraham Accords alliances, because this is kind of the talk in a lot of Lebanese news outlets and also social media.
We're praying.
Weekends in Beirut.
Yes, absolutely. Apparently they're amazing. And the thing is, the irony is...
Parties in Lebanon.
Oh, really? We're in. So we don't quad Lebanon, Beirut, the quad Beirut.
Quad Lebanon.
Wouldn't that be great? But you know, what's ironic, Shoshana, is that it seems like the Arab world somehow, because of this, is the moderate Sunni Arab countries like the UAE and Bahrain and Saudi to an extent, and maybe now Lebanon, is kind of, they see the truth, they understand what we're facing, and yet the Western countries, Canada, Britain, and France, are turning against us and making things worse. And like I said earlier, not bringing us closer to a ceasefire. In fact, giving a prize to Hamas for not sitting around the table. What's going on?
I think there's two prongs to this. Number one, they have allowed the Western countries in their open border ideas have allowed nefarious forces to come in, or just forces with a very different culture, refugees with a different culture, and have not integrated them into Western society. They've not told them, welcome, and these are the rules, right? Welcome, and you cannot X, Y, and Z, and you have to whatever, and teach them the pro-democratic values of Western countries. They have instead allowed them to be their own entity, a fifth column, whatever you want to call it, which is dangerous, and they're afraid of it. That's first of all. But second of all, it was pointed out, if you have, hopefully we can show this, but we have that picture from the mother with the sick child. It wasn't just that he's a sick child. They framed her as the Mary mother, the Mary Magdalene, not Mary Magdalene, the mother of God.
Yes, mother of Jesus.
I'm sorry, I don't know. My Christianity.
Mary.
And as baby Jesus being held.
Yes, it's true.
That is a very iconic figure, and it speaks to people subliminally.
For sure.
And it speaks to people immediate compassion, immediate passion and compassion.
But you would, wouldn't you?
But that's
if
what
you
I'm
didn't
saying.
know any better.
And on top of that, you're talking about something iconic that speaks to people's emotional base that they don't even recognize what's happening within. It's what subliminal advertising is.
Exactly.
I actually wrote a paper on subliminal advertising in college. It is the symbolism, it speaks to you on a level that you don't even know it's happening. And so people see this imagery, they immediately emote and relate to it. They feel like, oh my God, we have to stop this. And it's not a rational thing. And the media is complicit. Complicit. They know exactly what they're doing. And the retraction from the New York Times,
exactly,
and doesn't even say anything. And so the media adds to this idea that, you know, you made an excellent point, and Emily, you expanded on it. This is a unique problem because of Hamas.
Yeah.
But if the media is not talking about it, and if the people are all complicit in it, of course they're not going to see it.
Yeah.
And the Western societies are concerned with their own countries. And so again, Israel stands alone.
You know, it's incredible that people do not see the connection. You have somebody like Piers Morgan, for example, okay?
Well, they will eventually.
Well, they will eventually, but just as an example, he's just an example that he actually talks about anti-Semitism and he seems sympathetic, and yet he doesn't connect the lies and the people that he platforms, the bottom-feeding anti-Semite platforms, with the anti-Semitism going on. So there are people who are willing to recognize that there's a horrible anti-Semitism developing in these countries, but they don't connect it to the blood libels against the Jewish state.
I will say, not in defense of Pierce specifically, but part of the problem with the people who are sort of in the middle, who don't really know what's going on in Israel, is our fault. Not our fault for what we're doing, but it's our fault for not being able to explain what the hell we're doing.
Exactly.
And this is at the government level more than anything else, more even than the IDF, although the IDF certainly has shortcomings on this front. It is the government's job to do this. It is their job to give us information. It's their job to answer to the media. It's their job to answer Piers Morgan's questions.
Yes.
And they haven't done it from the beginning.
Well, instead they put government ministers who don't even can barely speak English.
But that's the problem. It's also, you have to, like, if you have 50,000 questions coming at you at one time, it's overwhelming. And at some point, as Israelis are already trained to do, but like, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that no one's answering questions about China, about Congo, no one's answering questions because no one's asking questions.
We're conducting a war.
But no,
we're using lethal force. The responsibility is with us.
I hear you, and
our obligation to explain.
I hear you, and I don't think it's rational to expect the government to be able to answer every question that comes up.
Shoshana,
media.
Yeah, but
fine, you don't have to.
Questions that you need to.
There are questions.
Answer,
there are questions.
And you're right. A lot of them are not answering them.
Yes, but Shoshana,
or they have contradictory answers because they don't know what's going on.
Or two things could be true at once.
True.
We could have the world at double standards, which is part of the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, where we all understand there's 85,000 children who's died of real hunger in Sudan. The first time I see anything about it was this morning.
Yemen.
And Yemen is hundreds of thousands.
There is actual famine.
600,000.
Yeah.
So we know there are double standards. We know that the woke is inherently anti-Semitic. We know all that. But if we know in the state of Israel that we are the most reviled country in the world by the media, we got to do something about it. And some news over here, all of us who are doing this day to day, we are not getting paid by anybody to do it. We are the soldiers in this war without any type of infrastructure. And this is what has to change with the Israeli government.
So if someone would like to give me $1 million for Jonathan,
We can share. I'm okay with sharing. I'm okay with sharing with Emily.
The point is, you know where the truth is? When the people are speaking truth, not because they're getting paid, but because that's the truth. And all the other people who are against us are all getting very handsome checks from mommy and daddy in Qatar. And that's what's actually going on. So that should tell you where the truth lies. And so let's just go back a little bit and talk about this ridiculous declaration of a Palestinian state where nobody knows the borders, who's the legitimate leader, the guy who hasn't had an election in 20 years, or Hamas that want to destroy the state of Israel. How is this going to actually impact us in reality, in September?
Well, I think if Macron is serious about this, it's actually a great idea. I mean, recently their court ruled that all Gazans are eligible for asylum.
Wow.
So good luck. Enjoy the French Riviera. That can be Palestine 2.0 and problem solved for everybody. It looks like.
We
can go home.
We can go.
My question is, why September?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
why
because there's the
wait?
UN.
Why
Because there's a UN General Assembly. And of course, we know the General Assembly is it's a den of iniquity, as to quote a Star Wars quote. I've been married for too long to a Star Wars fan. The den of iniquity, and but the Security Council will just be vetoed by the United States. So it's kind of meaningless, but it's a big diplomatic blow for Israel.
It is, because I think one of the things that we saw that after this declaration, Hamas kind of went back on their agreement to have some sort of a ceasefire or to release the hostages, and that have damaged real people on the ground. At the end of the day, what these countries, these Western countries, and by the way, Arabic countries have demanded, while the Western countries...
At the same time.
At the same time, well, the Western countries recognized Palestinian state without even knowing, like you mentioned, the borders or the leader. Arab countries, all of them almost, joined by saying that Hamas need to be dismantled and they need to give their weapons away.
Exactly.
So this is kind of the reality where you see that Western countries have no idea what's really happening here, while the Arabic countries are really understanding the reality. And the Western countries today gave a gift to Hamas to continue on using the Palestinian people and to continue on holding on the Israeli hostages, because they saw that as long as they will continue holding both the Palestinians in Gaza and our hostages in their terror dungeons, they can get more benefits out of it because they will get more recognition.
Hamas has said it.
Yeah.
They said it. Look at this video.
ليش كل الدول أصبحت تعترف بفلسطين الآن؟ قبل 7 أكتوبر هل في دولة تجرأت على أن تعترف بدولة فلسطين؟ أعطيني بس مثال. الآن حصاد 7 أكتوبر هو الذي خلى كل العالم يفتح عيونه على القضية الفلسطينية.
They basically said, thank you. This is the harvest. What do they say? The harvest of October 7th is this declaration. These are people who don't believe in a two-state solution. Of course, for them, the declaration of Palestine.
And they're hiding in Qatar also.
They've shifted the goalposts, which is something interesting, that in the aftermath of the failure of the negotiations and this declaration by several countries, suddenly Hamas is saying, oh, well, we're not doing anything. We're not releasing any hostages until the state of Palestine is recognized with Jerusalem as its capital. What?
Yeah.
You have never said that this is your goal. You only decided this was your goal now because of France and the UK and Canada and Malta and New Zealand and whatever other stupid countries.
Exactly. So thank you, David Lammy, for being even more moronic than you've been up until now. It's just beggars belief.
Keir Starmer's response to Emily Damari, you saw?
No.
But he didn't say this explicitly, but basically he said, Emily Damari called him out saying this is outrageous and that you're rewarding Hamas, which of course took her, a UK citizen, captive. And he responded basically by saying that it doesn't matter and that whether or not Hamas is still around, they're going to recognize a state of Palestine. Which is like an unbelievably disrespectful thing to say to your own citizen, that you did nothing to release.
Not just that, that when his government passed a resolution in their parliament about a ceasefire, they did not include, and she was still a hostage, they did not include the release of the British hostage that was there. It's absolutely shameful. And like Jonathan says, the irony is that the Sunni moderate Arabs are saying Hamas has to end for this to move forward. And yet the stupid European countries, by the way, the countries that are going to be drowning in jihadists within the next decade, they're the ones who are just feeding the crocodile, as Winston Churchill once said. This is what the appeaser does, feeds the crocodile thinking that it's going to eat you last. All right.
On this note.
On this very depressing note, we move over to our weekly therapy called Scumbag of the Week. Okay, and as our weekly therapy dictates, we're going to be doing now Scumbag of the Week. And every week, so many scumbags, and every week brings more scumbags than you. Shoshana, who's yours this week?
My scumbags are very in line with what we have discussed. You, France, Britain, Canada, Malta are all my scumbags of the week for rewarding the terrorists Hamas. You have given them on a golden platter every reason not to release the hostages, not to come to the table, not to put down their arms, because you're like, here, have a state. What the hell is wrong with you? You pretend to care about the Gazan people, but you don't. Because if you did, you would hold them to task, because they are the reason that everyone in Gaza, whoever is starving in Gaza, whoever is suffering in Gaza, it is because of Hamas. And you rewarding them prolongs the suffering. And you rewarding them prolongs the idea of jihad everywhere. You are my scumbags of the week. You really, really need to rethink what you're doing and why you're doing it, because you are leading us all down the path of destruction.
Wow.
Well, I cannot understand it.
I can understand it. They're pandering a lot of it to their own internal audiences. They don't really understand the conflict. They don't care. And they're just going where the votes are. And it's pathetic because all they're doing is making their own fate.
Appeasement. It's appeasement.
Appeasement. Exactly what we've been saying.
Like you said about the alligator.
Absolutely. Jonathan.
Yeah, so my scumbag of the week, maybe it's more the idiot of the week. His name is Yoav Litvin, and he goes in his bio on X. He says that he has PhD in neuroscience.
A neuroscience?
Yeah, and then this is like the proof that you can have PhD in neuroscience yet still be an idiot. He wrote that he started learning Arabic to learn the decolonization language.
Uh-huh.
I'm like rephrasing his thing, but this is what he said.
Right.
But I want to tell him, as someone who speaks Arabic as a tongue language, that Arabic is the language of colonization. I'm from Lebanon. Lebanon didn't speak Arabic before Arabs came and conquered our lands with force of sword, and then by forcing us to speak the language or we'll die. This is basically what they did. You have numerous people who lived in this territory, like the Chaldeans, the Assyrians, Aramaic, other people that had their own original languages that was stolen from them because of the Arabic colonization. So if you want to learn decolonizational language, go to Aramaic, go to Assyrian. Hebrew. This is why Hebrew was also revived again, because they said we're not willing to speak the colonizational language and we want our historic language to be revised. This is what I want to tell you.
Well, he's certainly an imbecile, and he's a scumbag for being an imbecile who has a PhD, apparently. Who knows?
He also writes for Al Jazeera, so this is...
Oh, no, there you go. Well, there you go. Like I said before, remember who's getting paid and remember who's doing this for free. And that's where the truth is.
It's actually really, really interesting and sad. It's sad to think of like all of the languages, the cultures that were lost.
Yeah.
And will never come back because people insist that Arabic was the language of Lebanon and Syria and Turkey and
And Morocco.
But so much lost. Thank you for reminding us.
And how many countries speak Hebrew? One. So who's the colonizer? All right, Emily, what about you?
So my scumbag of the week is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Ever ceases to give us more stupid things to talk about. First, it was the Jewish space lasers, which actually she was right about, as it turns out. But I digress. So she has this tweet. Yesterday, I spoke to a Christian pastor from Gaza, all one of them. There are children starving, and Christians have been killed and injured, as well as many innocent people. If you are an American Christian, this should be absolutely unacceptable to you. Okay. Well, I checked a little bit into Marjorie Taylor Greene's account to see just how much she's commented about the persecution of Christians in other locations, in particular the Middle East and Africa, where just this year in the Congo, we had 49 people killed in a church by Islamist militants. Several months before that, in February, we saw 70 Christians beheaded also in the Congo by Islamist militants. In Syria, we saw that a church was attacked by a suicide bomb, killing at least 29 people. In Nigeria, we have seen in the last 15 years, approximately 150,000 Christians slaughtered by Islamists. Just this year alone, we've seen about 200 that were killed in Islamist attacks. In Iraq, we saw an axe attack on Assyrian Christians during the New Year festival. And strangely enough, we don't see any condemnation or any comments from the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene about this. She only has a problem when it comes to the remaining, 500, 600 Palestinian Christians in Gaza, most of whom have fled as a result of, wait for it, Hamas.
Exactly.
Yeah. So she's upset about this accidental damage that was caused to one of the churches in Gaza. 2 people were killed, as far as we know. Two Christians have been killed that have been confirmed. They've claimed all kinds of numbers. None of them have really been confirmed except that, which Israel literally apologized for from the Prime Minister himself. And further than that, it wasn't the target. They weren't the target of the actual strike. It was just collateral damage of what they were targeting, which of course was terrorists, Hamas terrorists. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, you're my scumbag of this week and of many weeks, and I'm sure of many more to come. Please do us all a favor and shut up.
Absolutely. Well done, Emily. And honestly, she's ridiculous. Didn't she say something about dolphins? Was it her?
Probably.
That Israel had trained dolphins.
Herming Erdogan and Egypt.
Mossad dolphins. Yes.
Dolphins, squirrels, snakes, everything. Falcons.
Yes.
It's like the other guy that blamed the Mossad for stealing his shoe while he stopped.
Well, just a few days ago, one of the leading experts on water resources in Iran, he's doing a really great job,
They're running out of water, right?
Yeah, of course, they're about to have absolutely zero water come September. But this expert went on the regime media and said that the reason why there's a serious drought in Iran is because Israel and the Americans are controlling the weather and they're diverting the clouds.
So maybe the dolphins are actually, taking all the water. All the space lasers, either way. There's always conspiracies when it comes to Jews. And I want my scumbag this week, and there've been scumbags here before because we've been doing this for almost 2 years, are the UN women whose logo or whose motto is UN Women for All Women. Except that it seems like Israeli women are not part of all women, because why would we be? They have gone on a crazy, hysterical campaign talking about the starvation affecting women in the Gaza Strip. It's constant, it's 24 hours, and of course, they don't blame Hamas for anything. They don't blame Hamas for taking 40-year-old men and marrying them off to 12-year-old girls. They have nothing to say about that. They have nothing to say about what they do to the LGBT community there. But they do have a lot to say about Israel. And of course, this is the same UN women who wouldn't say openly that there'd been sexual crimes on October 7th. It took them 3 months to put out a report that everybody distanced themselves. And the woman who actually was employed by them and admitted to it got kicked out, or her contract wasn't renewed. And so these are disgusting double standards. And in fact, the UN in general are obsessed with us. They are, again, a den of iniquity, a den of countries that have zero democracy, but they use the UN to whitewash their dictatorships and give an aura of democracy because they're part of a so-called democratic process, which in fact they aren't. So honestly, UN women, you have disappointed every single woman in this country, Jewish and Arab alike. You are not worth anything, and I pray that your funding dries up, that the United States decide that you are not a cause to fund because you are essentially racists and apologists for terrorists. Whew. Okay. UN women, not for all women. That's how they should redo their motto. Okay.
Fix it for you.
And of course, we like to bring good, positive vibes to our show. So we're going to end on the hero of the week. So let's start with you, Emily. Who's our hero?
I think it probably is best that I start since mine is kind of very sad, in fact. But my hero for this week is Evyatar David, who was the center of the new hostage videos. Several of them. Ram Braslavsky is the other one, but I'll make both of them my hero for the week. But obviously, these two young men have been held captive by Hamas since October 7th, over 668 or something days now and counting. And the scenes of what we saw that were released by Hamas are just absolutely horrific. I mean, it's hard to put into words what we're actually seeing before our eyes. And furthermore, what most of the world continues to ignore. It's very, very reminiscent of the Holocaust, and I'm sickened that these are still the scenes that we're seeing, and I'm angry. But despite that, I don't know if Evyatar will ever see anything like this. I hope that he gets out and that he recovers, but I want him and his family to know that he is in our hearts for all of the state of Israel, along with Ram and all of the other hostages that are still in Hamas captivity. We have not forgotten you. We are seeing what's happening, and we are fighting for you the very best way that we know how, and will continue to all over the world in every language that we possibly can. You are not alone. You are not forgotten, and we will keep fighting until the last hostage is home.
Amen. Amen. And like I said earlier, I think it's kind of backfired on them. I think they were trying to move Israel opinion against the government. And I think a lot of people have been shocked by what they saw. As the real starvation, in fact, going on in Gaza. But those guys are heroes.
It's not just the starvation. It's that these videos are war crimes themselves. The videos themselves are war crimes. And I think it's so irresponsible that we see like media sharing this without even noting that. Like just the video itself is a war crime.
Absolutely.
And what about forcing them to do this, forcing him to dig his own grave? It's just that
But what about the media that doesn't show it? It wasn't on the New York Times, it wasn't on CNN, it wasn't on BBC.
Nothing. It was on the New York Post. That was the only cover.
And by the way, talking about complicity, How do you have a picture with, you know, the Virgin Mary and the baby symbol, and you don't even put on anything about Evyatar and Ram, who are suffering and who are being cruelly treated on purpose and displayed for the world? How do you not show that?
Yeah.
The hypocrisy is glaring.
And did you see how the Red Cross now, after almost 2 years, Bibi begging the head of the Red Cross, is saying, "Oh, we've written to Hamas, asking them to make sure that they're getting fed or that maybe we can see them." 2 years, Red Cross? Seriously, you're a joke.
Yeah, it's not even, you know, Hamas released that video on the 666th day when they were in hostage, and, you know.
Because they're fucking Satan.
They're Satan themselves, and this is the proof. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it,
This is the proof for it.
666.
666.
Ooh, Jonathan, thank you for that insight. Okay, now who's your hero, dear?
So my hero of the week kind of adds up to what just Emily shared. Jessie J, she's a British singer. She's now, she was rushed to the hospital in the last 24 hours because she's also suffering cancer.
Cancer, she's
also
fighting
in treatment. She published, after Evyatar's video was published, she published in her story. This is simply heartbreaking. I just simply cannot handle this evil in the world. Please, God, make this suffering end, and publish the video, the photo of Evyatar on her story to her 14,000 million followers. And that reminded me that it wasn't the first time that Jessie J stood by against terrorism. In 2022, when there was a terror attack here in Jerusalem that injured 8 people, including a pregnant woman, she also published in her story for her followers, saying, "Shooting 8 Jewish civilians in Jerusalem, leaving 2 critically injured, including a pregnant woman, is not resistance. It's terrorism."
Wow.
If it really shows you that at the end of the day, Israel is not fighting this terror from October 7th. It started way before Hamas and the Palestinian Authority were constantly attacking and doing terror attacks in Israel, where Jessie J showed that at the end of the day, against all these morally corrupt Hollywood stars and influencers around the world that stand by and basically support Hamas, Jessie J has more clarity.
Oh my God, and look, these days to come out in favor of Israel can be a real shot in the arm for your career, you know, a shot in the leg for your career. And she's, you know, moral clarity. It's insane.
It's not even pro-Israel. It's just anti-monster.
It's anti-monster. What's she saying at the end of the day?
It's so crazy to me because, like, when you look at, there was a big protest in Sydney in favor of Palestinians. They're not in favor of Palestinians. This is what's so, like, mind-blowing, is that these idiots in the West
They're
are
not
taking part in this movement.
They're not pro.
They're pro-Hamas.
Oh, yeah.
They're wait a minute.
Did you guys see that Yahya is now one of the top baby boy names in Britain?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we're not just talking about Mohammed.
Mohammed is number one.
Which is very
Remember
neutral.
when I said earlier in this
it's
episode
Islamic.
that they're going to find out?
But Yahya Sinwar was, by almost all standards, an absolute terrorist. A terrorist against his own people, not just against Israelis. Genocidal terrorist against his own people. And people are naming their babies after him in England.
But you know what the world doesn't realize? That anti-Semitism, yes, is the problem of the Jews to begin with. But then anti-Semitism is not just our problem. It rots society to the core. And when people say, and I keep saying this, how on earth did seemingly decent Germans manage to be part of the Holocaust? It is because Goebbels, the propaganda minister, put a radio in everybody's house and told them for 3 years that all of their problems was because of the Jews. And this is what we're seeing right now. Wake up, world.
And you know, we always say, there's a saying that we say, after Saturday comes Sunday. That means after the Arab world got rid of their Jews, they came after the Christians.
Oh, wow.
We can see that all across of the Middle East.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I really like that. That's really
They say, yes, after the Saturday people come the Sunday people. They say that is true. It's true. Shoshana.
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking about heroes.
Shoshana, give us some good vibes.
My heroes are actually also very connected to what we were talking about. I listened to the Call Me Back podcast with Don Senior. Every time I come here, I try to put it on because so I can like get all the perspectives. He has really good guests. And he had someone from Israel on. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Israel. Israel is an Israeli organization that usually works outside of Israel, in Japan and in Turkey, where there are devastations, where there are natural disasters. Israel goes to help. And for the first time, Israel is actually in Israel's borders helping our own refugees after October 7th, and now working in Gaza to actually feed the Gazan people by circumventing Hamas. And they work with partners. So they actually are getting aid to the people who need it in a very modest way, in a way that isn't making headlines, but that is actually really effective. And they're also concerned with Israeli security. So they're doing both. They're taking care of the vulnerable in Gaza and taking care of Israel's security needs. So kol hakavod to you. And I will point one more person out. I just saw this morning, Sarah Awaida, a 30-year-old Arab Israeli woman who also brings food directly to Gazan families. And now she's unfortunately in hiding because she has gone against Hamas. But there are good people out there trying to do good things. And if you want to give money to Gaza, if you feel bad about what's going on, give to Israel because they're actually doing it right. You're my heroes.
Absolutely. And Israel is an organization that has been around for decades. It's always been part of Israel's foreign policy to help the less fortunate, even when Israel didn't even
But they don't
have
get government funds. It's important to say that. They're not funded by the government.
But yes, that's right. But it's important to note that all of the different types of refugee crises that they had in Cyprus and in Greece, when people were arriving on boats, dehydrated and half dead.
They were there.
They were there.
Yeah.
They were there. They're always there.
Ground.
And that is part of the Israeli ethos. And that's why when we are painted as the opposite of that, it's so hurtful.
So hard.
Because we are the opposite of what they're painting us. But worthy heroes indeed. So my hero actually has been my hero before, but for a different reason, he's my hero today. He is Idan Amedi, who is an actor and he's a singer. And he was in Gaza as a reservist and he got injured in Gaza, very badly injured actually. It was touch and go for a few hours. But thank God he came out of it. He's now going back on tour. But the reason why he's my hero this week is because there was a petition by Israeli artists to end or to bring the war to an end, to push for a ceasefire, as if it's Israel that is the one that don't want a ceasefire. I have to keep reminding people, there is a ceasefire on the table. Israel has already compromised as much as it can, and it is Hamas that has rejected this last ceasefire proposal again and again and again. But the left in Israel doesn't want to be confused with facts. And so they wrote this petition, pushing the government, maligning the government for not wanting the ceasefire. And Idan Amedi, who is not a politician, who is a singer and an actor, goes and writes back and says this: go into a tunnel, fight for one day like tens of thousands of reservists, and then sign a petition. You are worthless. I've had enough of you. Basically what he's saying is that he went house to house in Gaza, and every single house in Gaza, you see the signs of terrorism. You see the signs of this anti-Semitic crazy rhetoric in every single house. You don't know what you're talking about. That is what Idan Amedi is saying. And he has no political ambition. He has no political agenda. He is simply a soldier that fought, got injured, and many of his soldiers also got injured. And he's coming out and saying, you don't know what you're talking about, so butt out. And so I really take my hat off to him. Yep. Idan Amedi, I've met him once when he played a show in Jerusalem. He's really a wonderful, very down-to-earth guy, a father of a few young children. And so God bless you, Idan Amedi, for your service. And God bless you for coming out in favor of the soldiers that are doing the holy work and that are trying to protect Gazan lives every single day more than their own leadership. Thank you, Idan Amedi.
It's also even more significant because he's an actor, he's a singer, he's in a culture, and that's the world that is really going against Israel right now, especially outside of Israel, but also a little bit inside of Israel, why we saw that type of letter. So it's he actually has more to lose by speaking up. So
a lot more
really, I respect a lot his statement.
But he's been there, and he refuses to be quiet because he knows the truth.
Yeah.
Anyway, good guy, good soul, and all these wonderful heroes that we've had this week. And we pray that this suffering for our hostages come to an end. We pray that the suffering in Gaza comes to an end. We pray that Hamas do the right thing and surrender, because you know what? When you lose a war, what happens is you surrender in order to save the lives around you of the people there. But unfortunately, Hamas uses the people around them and they refuse to surrender. So we pray for our hostages. We pray that God keeps them alive and healthy and brings them out after this Tisha B'Av. We also pray for unity amongst our own country. And that's really the most important thing, to face a horrible, wicked, genocidal enemy. So see you all next week. And thank you for watching.